The air is thick with the scent of copal incense and blood. Atop the Templo Mayor, a young man lies bound, his chest heaving, eyes wide with terror. The priest, cloaked in black, raises an obsidian blade that gleams under the midday sun. A single cut, precise and merciless, splits the man's chest. His heart, still beating, is torn free and held aloft to Huitzilopochtli, the god who drinks the life of men to keep the sun alive. The crowd below chants, their voices a low, hypnotic drone. The body is carried down the pyramid steps, its flesh destined for a sacred feast. This is not murder. This is worship. But why did the Aztecs believe their gods demanded such a price? And what does it mean when a civilization feeds on its own to survive? The Aztec Empire, known to its people as the Mexica, was a civilization of paradox, a society of poets, engineers, and astronomers, who built a city on a lake, yet whose religious fervor drove them to rituals so brutal they haunt us centuries later. At the heart of their world was a belief that the universe hung in a delicate balance, sustained only by blood and flesh. The Aztec cannibal priests were not mere butchers. They were cosmic mediators, tasked with appeasing gods who could unmake the world. This video explores the rituals, terror, and sacred hunger that define the Mexica, asking a question that lingers like a shadow. What does it mean to sacrifice the human to preserve the divine? The Mexica rose to power in the 14th century, founding their capital, Tenochtitlan, on an island in Lake Texcoco. By 1519, when Hernan courts arrived, their empire spanned much of modern Mexico, a network of tribute-paying city-states bound by trade, conquest, and fear. Their cosmology was relentless. The gods had sacrificed themselves to create the fifth sun, the current world, and humans owed a debt of blood to keep it turning. Central to this was human sacrifice, often paired with ritual cannibalism, performed by priests who were both revered and dreaded. The Templo Mayor, a twin pyramid dedicated to Huitzilopochtli and Tlaloc, was the stage for these acts. But to understand the horror, we must first see the world through Mexica eyes, a world where every sunrise was a miracle, bought with lives. The Mexica's obsession with sacrifice grew with their empire. By the 5th century, under rulers like Ahitzotl, the scale of offerings escalated. The 1487 rededication of the Templo Mayor reportedly saw 20,000 to 80,000 victims sacrificed over 4 days, though scholars debate the numbers. Victims often were captives, but sometimes Mexica citizens or children were chosen for their strength, beauty, or symbolic purity. The process was meticulous. Priests fasted, prayed, and prepared the victim, sometimes for months, treating them as living gods before their death. The act of sacrifice was theatrical, designed to awe. Victims were led up the pyramid's 114 steps, their bodies painted with chalk or red ochre. At the summit, 4 priests pinned the victim to a stone slab, while a 5th wielded the tecpatl, an obsidian knife sharper than steel. The heart was offered to the gods, burned in a brazier or placed in a vessel called a cuauhxicalli. The body was then dismembered, its parts distributed for ritual consumption or displayed as a warning. Cannibalism was not gluttony but a sacred act. Priests and nobles consumed small portions of the victim's flesh, believing it transferred divine power or connected them to the gods. Commoners rarely partook. This was a privilege of the elite, a communion with the cosmos. Yet, the scale of these rituals, thousands of victims annually, suggests a society gripped by a hunger that was both spiritual and psychological. Consider the festival of Tlaquetzipelistli, the flaying of men, dedicated to Tzatotec, the god of renewal. Captives were sacrificed, their skins flayed and worn by priests for days, a grotesque symbol of rebirth. Bernardino de Sahagn, a Spanish friar who documented Mexico life, described the scene. The flayed skins were dyed like the skins of jaguars, and the priests danced, their movements slow, as if the gods themselves walked among them. The flesh was cooked with maize in a stew called Tlacatlali, shared among the elite in a ritual that blurred the line between reverence and horror. Another chilling case is the sacrifice of children to Tlaloc. During droughts, young boys and girls, often bought from impoverished families, were drowned or buried alive to appease the rain god. Their tears were seen as omens of rain, their deaths a plea for survival. The Codex Mendoza, a 16th century manuscript, notes the precision of these rituals. Children were adorned with green feathers and paper banners, their cries recorded as sacred signs. Primary sources, though filtered through Spanish chroniclers, offer glimpses into the Mexican mind. Diego Duran, another friar, wrote, "They believed the gods grew weak without blood, as a man starves without food. To deny the gods was to invite darkness." The Florentine Codex, compiled by Sahagan, describes a priest's prayer during sacrifice. "O Huitzilopochtli, accept this heart, this precious eagle cactus fruit, that the sun may rise and the world endure." These words reveal a worldview where terror was not cruelty, but necessity. Modern scholars add depth. Anthropologist Michael Harner argued that cannibalism may have served a practical purpose, supplementing protein in a diet scarce in large game. Others, like Ross Hassig, counter that the rituals were primarily symbolic, reinforcing social hierarchy and imperial power. The truth likely lies in both, a fusion of spiritual dread and political control. Why did the Mexica embrace such extreme rituals? Psychologically, the constant threat of cosmic collapse rooted in their myth of the five suns, where previous worlds were destroyed, created a collective anxiety. Sacrifice was a coping mechanism, a way to assert control over an indifferent universe. Culturally, it reinforced the Mexica's identity as a chosen people, tasked with sustaining the gods. The priests, trained from childhood in Comicac schools, were not sadists but theologians, their actions guided by a logic alien to modern sensibilities. Cannibalism, too, was layered. Eating the flesh of a sacrificed warrior was akin to absorbing his valor, a spiritual transaction. Yet, it also served to dehumanize enemies, reducing them to offerings. This duality, reverence, and domination mirrors the Mexica's complex society, where beauty coexisted with brutality. What does it mean to build a civilization on blood? The Mexica saw themselves as stewards of the cosmos, their sacrifices a sacred duty. Yet, to us, their actions are a nightmare, a reminder of how far belief can twist the human soul. Were they monsters, or were they simply human, driven by a fear of annihilation we can scarcely comprehend? Their rituals force us to confront our own capacity for violence in the name of something greater, whether religion, ideology, or survival. The Templo Mayor's ruins still stand in Mexico City, silent but heavy with memory. What do they whisper about us? The obsidian blade falls. A heart is lifted to the sky. The gods are fed, and the sun rises again. But at what cost? The Mexica believed they saved the world with every cut. Perhaps they did. Or perhaps they only fed their own fear, a hunger that consumed them as surely as they consumed their victims. History doesn't whisper, it screams. But most people never listen. You just did. Subscribe to the Blood Archive if you're ready to remember what others have tried to forget.